I'm Colombe. I'm the co-founder of Now, and I'll be joined today by Léo, who's already here, who's a Cuban activist and will tell us about his work in uniting Cubans in exile for freedom and democracy in Cuba. It's a struggle that we often forget, but as Léo just told me, it's one of the longest dictatorships, and it's one of the ones where we need international attentions. And we'll then be joined as well by an activist from Myanmar, the founder of the Burma Center for Human Rights, who will tell us about what's happening following the coup and what we can all do across the world to support democracy and freedom. But before that, I want to tell you a little bit about this Fridays for Freedom protest and where it comes from and what you can do to get involved and to support freedom fighters all across the world and to fight for democracy. So we started Fridays for Freedom now more than 6 months ago on July 3rd, 2020, after the introduction of the national security law in Hong Kong. For those of you who don't know, the national security law was basically one of the final crackdowns on the one country, two systems framework and on the idea of freedom and democracy in Hong Kong. And a part of our movement is from Hong Kong, from the region, and they said, okay, we need people across the world to come together, we need people to unite, and we need to be able to affect change together. And through Hong Kong, you really see that when you have one big authoritarian country, especially one like China with a big economic muscle, in front of people protesting for years, however they do it, you need the international community to unite. You need the international community to come together and work together to support freedom fighters. So that's why we started Fridays for Freedom. We started just 3 people in front of a Chinese embassy in Brussels in Belgium, got chased away by a guard. And 6 months later, we're reaching 4 million people online regularly who are taking part in this protest. We're in the midst of a pandemic, so it's quite hard to protest on the ground, although we can still do it in certain places. And we have protests in over 40 cities across the world, on all continents. So for me, what this shows me beyond the bravery of individual activists is the fact that together, when we unite, we can have a strong voice. And we're not just protesting, saying enough with authoritarianism, enough with crackdowns. We're actually asking for a concrete solution. So for the last 6 months, we've been protesting to create a League of Democracies. So personally, I always say it, but I like this name because it makes me think of little superheroes coming together to work together. But it's actually the idea that all democratic countries across the world should come together to coordinate responses to authoritarianism. This means targeted economic sanctions that are done together. This means targeted diplomatic sanctions. And it means that as a result, we will be stronger. Because you see it, I'll keep with the example of Hong Kong. You see it when Australia tried to answer to the CCP's aggression, and suddenly it was plagued by tariffs. A country alone is weak. But in an alliance with a lot of others, it's not. So that's why we're working very hard and we're protesting every Friday to get the G7, this group of wealthy countries that are democracies, to start discussing the idea. But we don't want to stop at the G7. We don't think that the old world order of a few countries ruling over the world and creating a lot of the problems we're in today is the way forward. We want the discussion to start, and then we want every democracy in the world who's willing to join in this League of Democracy. But not only, we also want political parties that are elected from the members in countries that are non-democratic to join, to represent the will of the people. So take Venezuela. There's right now an alternative national assembly that was democratically elected a couple of years ago and one that wasn't. We want the Venezuelans to be represented as well in this League of Democracy. We want all people across the world to be able to come together and work together, not just to protect democracy, but also to innovate it. And I love the saying that democracy is never won and always remains to be won. And this is the case, which means that we can actually better it if we learn from one another, if we look at what others are doing and how they're doing it better than we are. If you look at Taiwan and all of the participatory democracy mechanisms they have, it's really, really cool. I actually say cool as a word because I think it's amazing to see this. And we can all learn from one another if we start working together. So to wrap it up, we've been protesting for 6 months across the world on the ground and now virtually as well in the midst of the pandemic, because we want countries to come together. And as people, we have the power to ask our governments to do so. We're not just protesting, we're lobbying government officials, and we're starting to discuss with elected representatives the fact of bringing our demand forward at the G7. But I'm not the main speaker today. I wanted to give you the background of our protest, because I believe that it's key to unite across borders. And that's why we have, as I mentioned earlier, two amazing activists who are joining us to talk both about Myanmar and about Cuba. So we'll start first to hear about what happened in Myanmar in the last weeks, and how the international community can come and support protesters on the front line, those that have been imprisoned. And then we'll jump to Cuba to hear about the long-standing struggle for democracy and freedom, the fact that certain countries have been, that we think are very democratic, have been playing into the Cuban regime's game, and what we can all do through voting, through awareness, and so on, to support the struggle for freedom in Cuba. So first, I'll give the mic to Mr. Win. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, who's the founder of Burma Human Rights Network, who will tell you about the situation in the country. Even though we can't hear you behind your computer, everyone, welcome him warmly. I hope you're smiling, excited, and are ready to continue this online protest.
Hi, I hope you can hear my voice. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you perfectly.
Perfect. Thank you very much for organizing it. I really appreciate that. And everyone who are listening, good afternoon, and greeting from us. We currently, Burma is facing, go back to square one, what we call it. Since 1962, Burma has been under the military rule, and Burma is a very diverse country. We have a lot of minorities, ethnic minorities, and religious minorities. Everyone is now under the oppression by the military, by the Burmese ethnic Burma military. So now, the country is now in 1988, and then along all these years, 1988, 2007, and all these years, we have faced a lot of public uprisings, and again, it has happened again. So the point here is the military want to create a democracy. They call it democracy, but they still want to keep their power. They control the power because they are enjoying the economic benefits, and they are making money. They're stealing money from the country, so they don't want to lose it. They don't want to leave it. So what they did is, in 2008, they drafted a constitution. When we had an uprising in 2007, they created one 2008. They realized that international community and people in Burma no more going to tolerate this. So they tried to fool the international community. So what they did was they drafted a constitution. We call it 2008 constitution. This constitution was, actually during the Nages cyclone, there were hundreds of thousands of people perished during that time. So they conducted the election on that time, and nobody willing to vote it for that. But they said that 95% or something people voted and agreed on that. So they just fabricated. So they, according to that 2008 constitution, 25% of the parliament seat automatically goes to the military. So the general will select who should go and sit there. And if we want to pass any law, we need 76% of votes. So 1% of the military, if they disagree with this, we cannot pass any law. So that's how they control the power. And the three key ministries, like Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Defense, and Ministry of Border Affairs. So why this border affairs is the border affairs, all the ethnic minorities are living across the borders. So they want to control that. So all the security, those who have a security sectors, all they control the security sectors. And there isn't any law in Burma that could, sentence the judge, the general, because he is above the law according to the constitution. So the military doesn't need required to go to the public court. The public court cannot give sentence to the military, and the military court is above the civil court, and it looked like above civil court. The top general, who is the current general, he is the one who going to decide in the. So if he commit any crime, there isn't any rule or any law, any court who can verdict or can sentence him. So that is the situation. So in 2017, and before that 2016, when American lifted all the sanctions, immediately they started Rohingya genocide. So when they committed genocide in 2017, so you may heard about there are hundreds of thousands, nearly 800,000 people fled to neighboring country Bangladesh. So there is now 1.1 million. There are another 300,000 already there since 1976. So 1978. So that from that time, Rohingyas are facing persecutions. So this 1.1 million want to return back, but they are not giving them to allowing them to return because they deny their citizenship, their ethnic rights. So they said that they are foreigners. So that means you can't go to school, you can't vote, and you can't take any high office in government, and there you can't buy any property. So that means they become slave in the country. That is the situation they are creating for the Rohingya people. That's why they don't want to come back. They don't want to repatriate until they have the equal right in Burma. So this military, what they have done, this General Min Aung Hlaing who committed genocide in 2017, and UN fact-finding mission says that, proved that this is the genocide. And he is now accused by the genocide. So that the point is, he should retire since 1 or 2, 3 years ago. And he doesn't want to retire because he afraid that if he retired, and somebody will definitely arrest and send him to The Hague because he committed genocide. So what he want to do is he want to maintain the power. In order to maintain the power, he want to become at top positions or something. But the current president, who has to extend his in this job of the chief commander, senior general, he doesn't want to extend this year. He said, no, we're not gonna extend your job this year. So what we're gonna do is he has to retire, or he need to take any. But he doesn't want to take any public office, or he doesn't want. Because what he knows is, if he leave that uniform and leave this position, his security is very dangerous. Also, another thing is his family wealth is immensely big. Huge money they have got. They have stolen from the country, and they have billions and trillions of money. They have obtained during these few years. So he want to protect this wealth. So what he did is he couped the power. He didn't give the power to the democratically elected government. So now he couped the power, and they are now start creating very dangerous thing that what we are seeing is we may see more bloodshed, because the military, who has been historically committing heinous crime in Burma, are now in the power again. So that is why what we are calling is we are calling for important thing, that abolish the 2008 constitution and the military rule in Burma, and form a federal government that guarantee the right for all the minorities. And the fourth is release all the political prisoners. So this is what we are asking, and we are asking to international community to impose immediately a targeted sanction against those generals, their families, their businesses, their investment in neighboring countries and abroad. So if we attack their wealth, when you hit their deep pocket, it will hurt them, right? So that is a important step international community need to do. But when there is when our democratic right, when our human right is challenged, this is a duty for every human being on earth to stand up against those oppressor and stand up with the people who've been oppressed. So we are asking everyone, please stand up with people of Burma today. Thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you for those very inspiring words. So I think we can all join behind our computers right now to stand with those on the front lines in Burma protesting. We've seen many people injured, but we also see, looking at the bright side, the bravery of those on the front lines that are risking everything for democracy, for freedom, and for their beliefs. And this is something we see all across the world, and that really unites us as people. So I now want to give the mic to Léo from Cuba, who will tell you what I told you about before, about the longest standing struggle for democracy and freedom. And I think he has some parallels to make with Myanmar as well, which will link very well.
Thank you, Colombe. Thank you for this opportunity to speak about the Cuban issue. We have a lot of similarities with what's happening in Burma. Actually, I just want to start by saying that in 2017, when Obama was in Cuba, one of the things that they proposed to the opposition was to create the Burma exit, which was actually giving half of the parliament to the military and half of the parliament to the opposition, just like in Burma. So a lot of the things that are happening now in the opposition is that some of the people who were in this secret meeting that no one knew about said yes, and some people said no. And now in the opposition, we have this fracture of saying like, wow, you guys were willing to negotiate with the dictatorship while we're here struggling to actually have this, you know, like free our country. You know, let me just say that the Cuban people understand what's happening and stands in complete solidarity with you and what's happening over there in the struggle for democracy. So, like I said to Colombe before, like a lot of the people, mostly in Europe, are under the misconception that, you know, Cuba is this tropical island where people go and have tourism, and you can go smoke a cigar and drink a mojito, and then go on like this like old Spanish cars. And this is a misconception because Cuba has become a tourist destination. So I think that when people go visit there, they always say, oh, it feels like you're going back in time. And it is, in fact, that Cuba has been stuck in time and has been stuck under the reins of a dictatorship that we have not been able to evolve. The Cuban Revolution in the beginning was actually a democratic in nature. The main cause of that revolution was the restitution of the 1940 Constitution, which was actually, you know, put like, received a coup d'etat in 1952. So the Cuban Revolution actually started by this promise that we were going to put the 1940 Constitution back into effect and have a democratic republic again. You know, Fidel Castro lied to everybody. He seized power. He reigned, you know, until 1976 and created a new constitution like in Burma. And they actually did another constitution in 2019. So we're having a constitutional issue also in Cuba where the legitimate constitution, which is a constitution of 1940, has been, you know, under coup d'etat for like now like more than 62 years. Now, what we want to tell the international community is that we need your support. We need you to stop thinking that Cuba is this paradise where everyone is happy. No, that's not the case. You know, out of the 30 articles of the Declaration of Human Rights, like in Cuba, like 90% of them are systematically violated again and again. Like just in January, we have seen crackdowns on, you know, like artists, on, we even saw like the Minister of Culture coming out into the streets and started beating the activists, the artists that were there protesting because they want to have a dialogue, because we have so many political prisoners of conscience, just like, you know, just going to jail for no reason. You know, people who are artists especially are going through this big repression right now. And then, you know, we have to stand in solidarity with that. So from Brussels, what we're trying to do, we know that we're in a privileged place because this is where the European Parliament is. And the European Parliament, even though it's the biggest democratic parliament in the world, it's also the accomplice, the #1 accomplice of the Cuban dictatorship, because it's thanks to the subsidies and all the humanitarian aid that it's been sent from Europe that the regime still stays in power. So we need to tell the European people, stop believing the communist rhetoric. Cuba has been under oppression. People are like, we don't have like democratic memory. It has been 62 years. I was born into a dictatorship. My parents were born into a dictatorship. So like people are scared to come out into the street because for 62 years, everyone who has dissented has been either killed, disappeared, or go to jail. We had concentration camps. Like my own family went to concentration camps. I have my, you know, tortured people in my family. Why? Just because of simple reasons that they believe that in Christianity. Because when the revolution actually just came into power, the first thing that they did was take away the liberty of people to believe in God. Why? Because the state became the mighty God, really, in that sense. So what, you know, our struggle is about democracy, but it's also a struggle to recover the spirituality of our nation, like the values that we have. We were one of the most advanced societies at the time in the 50s. Why? Because we were open to the world. We were open to everybody. We were receptors of immigrants. And what we are now are people who are immigrating, people who are living left and right. In Cuba, you will never find a common grave, because our common grave is the ocean. Because since we're an island, every time we have had exodus of people leaving to the United States, thousands of people have died. And we cannot continue just thinking that this is not happening. We need the international community to wake up and listen to us. For example, last summer, when we went to the United Nations to actually talk about how the Cuban regime had inoculated the HIV virus in one of the dissidents, Cuba was supported by North Korea, Venezuela, Eritrea, and China. And when we see this, these are the paragons of democracy. And I'm kidding when I say this, because this is like the worst dictatorship actually coming into the support of Cuba and blocking this denunciation from being made. So what we're seeing is that this is a complicity that goes beyond borders. So a League of Democracies, it is a great thing. But, you know, I think the European Union was this kind of League of Democracies. And what we're seeing in this League of Democracy, which is the European Union, is that we see a complicity with the Cuban dictatorship, that we see their own negation of their own democratic values and the own promise of respecting human rights. So what we're asking people is like, come and support us. Our first protest that we came and outside and we did was on December 10th, which was International Human Rights Day. And we made a call to the international community. We even went into different organizations. And the only people who came out and support us at Luxembourg Square in front of the European Parliament was Ven Europa, which are the Venezuelans who actually know our struggle, because what is happening in Venezuela is a mutation of what happened in Cuba. Cuba have exported this revolution. It has exported the revolution in all other corners of the world, in Asia, in Africa, and in Latin America. And we continue to see this mutation of this dictatorship, and we need to stop. Democracies are in danger, and we need to really fight for this. So what I'm asking is just support us. When you see a Cuban person, ask what's happening in Cuba. Not just like, you know, just don't tell them what you think of Cuba. Let them tell you the reality. And so that's what I just hoping that everybody understands. And I hope that we can, you know, continue moving forward with this struggle until liberation.
Thank you, Léo. So you've heard it all. First, listen. Whenever someone coming from a non-democratic situation or one that is slowly going through an erosion of democracy talks to you, listen. Then do your research, learn more about it. You can't afford to sit back and relax. You really can't. Democracies have been going back since 2015. So it's not only the case in authoritarian countries. Most democracies have lost points on the democracy index since 2015. We're going back. We cannot just wait. This is urgent. This is our lives. So listen, inform yourself, and then take action. There are 100,000 ways of doing this. You just heard from 3 people from 3 different organizations that want the same: for freedoms and democracies to be respected, improved, and enforced. And this across the world. We come from 3 different continents: Asia, the Americas, and Europe. We all believe the same thing, that if we unite across the world, if countries come together, we stand a chance at winning the struggle that is democracy, of improving the world. And yes, it sounds idealistic, but I am French after all, of making the world a better place. So do something. Go in front of your government building, protest. You can do this with Fridays for Freedom that we're organizing. Join the protests of other people in front of the European Parliament, in front of embassies. Make sure you make your voice heard. And then vote accordingly. Better, run for elections. Because democracy has something, your country has something to do with democracy. Even if you live in an established democracy, most likely your country and your government support authoritarian regimes one way or another. Whether by implementing trade deals, for example, the ones between the European Union and China right now, despite the fact that there's an ongoing genocide against Uyghurs and crackdowns across the world. Or simply by supporting diplomatic ties, etc. So you have a responsibility to act. If you do not act, I know it sounds very tough, but you are part of the problem. And you will be judged by history as being part of the problem. Trust me, you don't want this. So our amazing social media team will be posting, wherever you're watching this live, links to be able to join the various initiatives you've heard and to be able to act. If you're not convinced by any of them and you don't like Now, you don't like any of the other organizations you've heard from, I don't care. Create your own. but do something. We need people to take action in 2021. We need to make sure that democracy grows, blossoms, improves, gets innovated, and that across the world, we get to stand together for it. On this note, just on the now admin side, we'll go back to protesting on the ground as we've been doing, including in London, where I am right now from next week onwards, not in big groups because we can't, but we push people to go in front of the government buildings with a sign, stay 10 minutes and make sure that they can't do anything but see you. So put loud music, sing, scream, do whatever is needed, go into a breakdance. We want to see you. We want the message to be passed. We want you to stand for democracy with us across the world. So thank you all for joining. Thanks to our amazing speakers. I'm sure they're receiving a big virtual clap across the world. And you heard it. Let's unite, because together, united, we cannot be defeated. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.